In a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy strategy, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the closure of the State Department's Counter-Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference Hub, a key office tasked with combating disinformation from foreign adversaries. This decision, made on April 16, 2025, has raised concerns among diplomats and foreign policy experts about the potential ramifications of dismantling an office that played a critical role in monitoring and countering disinformation campaigns from state actors such as China, Russia, and Iran. The closure of the Disinformation Hub has been in the works for several weeks, culminating in the abrupt decision to place about 40 employees on paid leave, effectively derailing an operation intended to safeguard against foreign influence. Earlier in March, the State Department had already terminated approximately 80 contractors affiliated with the office and cut most contracts tied to its activities. The move is perceived as part of a broader strategy to reshape the State Department under the current administration, which has faced increasing scrutiny over its handling of foreign policy and national security. In a statement, Rubio claimed that the office had misallocated resources, asserting that it had spent millions of dollars to actively silence and censor the voices of Americans they were supposed to be serving. However, he did not provide evidence to substantiate these accusations. This perspective is echoed by some Republican lawmakers who have long argued that federal disinformation efforts were biased against conservative viewpoints. Critics of the closure, however, argue that dismantling such an office could leave the U.S. vulnerable to the sophisticated and aggressive disinformation strategies employed by its adversaries. James P. Rubin, a former State Department official who oversaw the predecessor to the now-closed office, countered Rubio's assertions, describing the closure as a form of unilateral disarmament in the information warfare being waged by Russia and China. He emphasized that the previous efforts were focused solely on international disinformation campaigns rather than domestic political discourse. The office's operations had included publishing reports on foreign disinformation tactics and collaborating with allies to mitigate the spread of misinformation, particularly in regions where adversaries exert significant influence. The decision to close the office also coincides with discussions about drastic budget cuts at the State Department, with proposals circulating that suggest nearly a 50% reduction in the agency's budget for the upcoming fiscal year. This could lead to the closure of multiple embassies and consulates, raising alarms about the U.S. diplomatic presence worldwide at a time when adversaries are expanding their global reach. The Counter-Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference Hub was established as a successor to the Global Engagement Center, which had been operational since 2011 and focused on countering the propaganda of terrorist organizations. Under the Biden administration, the center had received criticism from conservative factions, with some lawmakers accusing it of fostering censorship against right-leaning voices. The new hub aimed to continue essential functions, including addressing disinformation from China and Russia, but faced immediate challenges upon its inception. In the context of a rapidly evolving information landscape, experts warn that the U.S. must remain vigilant against foreign interference, particularly with the increasing sophistication of disinformation tactics. U.S. intelligence officials have consistently pointed to Russia as a primary actor in foreign election interference, further complicating the national security landscape as domestic divisions persist. As the Trump administration moves forward with its plans, the implications of this closure are yet to be fully realized. The State Department's capacity to counter foreign disinformation is now in question, and as Rubio's team pushes for further cuts, the diplomatic community is left to ponder how these changes will affect U.S. influence and credibility on the global stage. The future of the U.S. approach to disinformation and its broader foreign policy strategy remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the stakes are higher than ever as disinformation battles continue to shape international relations. In a significant development within the Pentagon, 2 senior officials have been placed on administrative leave amid an ongoing investigation into unauthorized disclosures of sensitive information. This decision underscores the heightened scrutiny surrounding the Defense Department's handling of classified material, with implications that reach beyond just the individuals involved. The officials in question are Dan Caldwell, a senior advisor to Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and Darren Selnick, the Pentagon's Deputy Chief of Staff. Caldwell was reportedly escorted from the Pentagon on Tuesday, while Selnick's suspension was confirmed by multiple sources familiar with the situation. The investigation stems from allegations that Caldwell may have shared classified documents with reporters, a claim that, if proven true, could have serious ramifications not just for him but for the broader security protocols at the Department of Defense. Caldwell, a veteran of the Marine Corps and an Iraq War veteran, has a background that includes positions at Defense Priorities and Concerned Veterans for America, an organization previously led by Hegseth. His involvement in a recent incident highlighted in The Atlantic, which revealed text messages regarding military strikes against Houthi forces, has come under particular scrutiny. The article indicated that Hegseth had designated Caldwell to represent the Defense Department in discussions related to these military actions. In response to the leaks, Joe Casper, Hegseth's chief of staff, issued a memo instructing the Pentagon to conduct a thorough investigation into unauthorized disclosures, even suggesting the use of lie detector tests if necessary. This proactive measure reflects the Pentagon's commitment to maintaining the integrity of sensitive information, as well as its intent to address potential breaches decisively. The timing of these suspensions coincides with a broader atmosphere of concern regarding the handling of classified information within the U.S. government. Just as the Pentagon initiated this investigation, it faced questions about reports alleging that Elon Musk was to receive a briefing on military strategies in the event of a conflict with China. Such claims, which the Pentagon and White House have since denied, have only added fuel to the fire of public scrutiny concerning transparency and the management of classified materials. As this situation unfolds, discussions about further personnel changes at the Pentagon are reportedly underway, signaling that the implications of this investigation may extend beyond Caldwell and Selnick. The potential for additional suspensions or disciplinary actions reflects a broader reckoning within the Defense Department regarding its operational security. Looking ahead, this episode raises critical questions about the balance between transparency and national security, particularly in an era where information can be disseminated rapidly through various channels. The outcomes of this investigation may influence not only the careers of those involved but also the policies governing information sharing within the Department of Defense. As the military grapples with the evolving landscape of information security, all eyes will be on how these developments shape future protocols and the administration of classified information. In a bold declaration that has ignited substantial debate, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. labeled the increasing rates of autism in the United States as an epidemic, attributing the surge to environmental toxins. This assertion comes on the heels of a recent report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC) that revealed autism diagnoses have risen sharply, with 1 in 31 children diagnosed in 2022 compared to 1 in 36 in 2020. This marked increase has drawn attention to the complexities surrounding autism's causes and the ongoing discussions about its diagnosis and treatment. During a press conference held on April 16, 2025, Kennedy expressed concern over what he termed an unrelenting upward trend in autism prevalence, emphasizing that these figures cannot be solely attributed to advancements in diagnostic practices or increased awareness. The epidemic is real, he asserted, underscoring his commitment to identifying specific environmental factors that may contribute to autism. Kennedy's focus on environmental toxins, including food additives and pesticides, aligns with a broader narrative he has previously espoused linking autism to various environmental exposures, although many of these claims remain controversial and largely unsupported by the scientific community. The CDC's latest report also highlighted the potential role of improved detection methods in the rising rates of autism, suggesting that better awareness and expanded access to services have led to more diagnoses, particularly in populations that historically had limited access to autism evaluations. Dr. Sarah Swoboda, a pediatrician and member of the American Academy of Pediatrics Subcommittee on Autism, noted that the findings indicate a significant improvement in recognizing autism among children, rather than an actual epidemic. "This is just us doing a better job of identifying autistic children that have existed before," she stated, reinforcing the importance of nuanced understanding in the discourse surrounding autism. Kennedy's remarks, however, have drawn sharp criticism from autism researchers and advocates who caution against oversimplifying the disorder's complex etiology. Experts like Allison Singer, president of the Autism Science Foundation, argue that the genetic component of autism is well established, with approximately 20% of cases linked to identifiable genetic variants. The assertion that autism is a preventable disease has been particularly contentious, as it contradicts the consensus that autism is a multifaceted condition influenced by a combination of genetic, biological, and environmental factors. Critics have also voiced concerns over Kennedy's framing of autistic individuals and their potential contributions to society. During his address, he characterized children with autism in a manner that many advocates found stigmatizing and dehumanizing, suggesting they would not lead fulfilling lives. This portrayal prompted swift backlash from organizations like the Autism Society of America, which emphasized the need for dignity, respect, and a more accurate representation of the autistic community. As Kennedy's agency prepares to launch studies aimed at uncovering the environmental factors associated with autism, the timeline for delivering results has raised eyebrows among experts. While Kennedy promised initial findings by September, many researchers argue that such a timeframe is insufficient for the comprehensive investigation required to yield reliable conclusions. The lack of clarity regarding the methodology and partnerships for these studies only adds to the skepticism surrounding Kennedy's claims. The ongoing dialogue about autism's rising rates and potential environmental causes reflects broader societal debates about health science and public policy. As discussions unfold, the need for a balanced approach, one that acknowledges the complexities of autism while advocating for research rooted in established science, becomes increasingly critical. With the CDC's alarming data serving as a backdrop, the coming months will be pivotal in shaping both public understanding and policy regarding autism and its myriad influences. As Kennedy's administration moves forward, the intersection of environmental health, genetic research, and autism advocacy will undoubtedly remain a focal point of national discourse, with implications that could resonate for years to come. In a significant escalation of the ongoing debate over transgender athletes in sports, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced a civil lawsuit against the state of Maine on April 16, 2025. The lawsuit asserts that Maine has failed to comply with Title IX, a federal law prohibiting sex-based discrimination in educational programs and activities, by allowing transgender females to compete in girls' sports. Bondi characterized the situation as horrific for women in the state, highlighting the tensions between state autonomy and federal oversight. The backdrop to this legal confrontation includes a series of high-profile instances where transgender athletes have participated in female competitions. Notably, a biological male recently won first place in pole vaulting at a Maine indoor track and field meet, qualifying for regional championships and taking a spot from a female athlete. Bondi stated shame on him during her announcement, underscoring the emotional weight of the issue for advocates of women's sports. Another example cited in the lawsuit involved a biological male competing in women's skiing events where he achieved a time that would have ranked significantly lower among male competitors. The Department of Justice (DOJ), which filed the lawsuit in federal court, aims to employ every legal tool available to rectify these alleged violations and protect women's civil rights. The lawsuit consists of 31 pages and is a direct response to Maine's refusal to sign a resolution agreement that would align its practices with federal mandates. The DOJ is not only seeking an injunction against the state but is also exploring the possibility of retroactively withdrawing federal funding from Maine's educational programs and awarding titles to female athletes who were affected. Maine's Governor Janet Mills condemned the lawsuit as part of an unprecedented campaign by the federal government to impose its will on the state. She argued that the issue at hand is not merely about sports but rather a matter of state rights and the rule of law. Mills has reiterated her commitment to comply with both state and federal laws. asserting that the state is acting within its rights regarding the participation of transgender athletes. Maine's Attorney General Aaron Fry expressed confidence that the state's actions are in alignment with legal standards, criticizing the federal administration for lacking substantive legal citations to support its claims. Fray's statement reflects a broader sentiment among some state lawmakers who are wary of losing crucial federal funding yet remain determined to defend Maine's policies. Republican Representative Katrina Smith voiced the hope that Maine would not lose federal support while emphasizing the importance of protecting students' rights. The political ramifications of this lawsuit extend beyond Maine. Bondi indicated that the DOJ is prepared to take similar actions against other states including Minnesota and California that may also be perceived as violating Title IX in relation to transgender athletes. The broader issue has become a key talking point in political discourse, with many Republicans framing it as a fight for women's rights while Democrats argue that it represents an overreach of federal authority. The conflict has deep historical roots tracing back to the Obama administration's efforts to expand civil rights protections for transgender individuals. Under President Biden, the government sought to reinforce such protections in stark contrast to the current administration's push to define gender strictly along biological lines. This shift has ignited an increasingly polarized debate over the rights of transgender individuals and the implications for women's sports. As the lawsuit unfolds, it is poised to ignite a complex dialogue about the intersection of gender identity, civil rights, and state autonomy. The outcomes could set significant precedents for how educational institutions across the nation handle the participation of transgender athletes in sports, shaping not only policy but also public opinion on this contentious issue. With both sides firmly entrenched in their positions, future developments are likely to further illuminate the complexities of Title IX as it grapples with contemporary interpretations of gender and equality in sports. In a significant move aimed at alleviating corporate anxiety about the current economic climate, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent urged America's top CEOs to shift their focus from tariff concerns back to their business operations. In an interview with Yahoo Finance, Bessent reassured industry leaders that clarity on tariffs and regulatory matters is on the horizon, stating, "We're going to have a lot more clarity on the way forward on tariffs over the next 90 days. Bessent's comments come amidst rising apprehension among corporate executives regarding the Trump administration's trade policies, particularly the impact of tariffs on their operations. Notably, CEOs like J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon and Goldman Sachs' David Solomon have expressed fears of an impending recession exacerbated by the chaotic trade environment. Dimon remarked a recession is likely, reflecting a sentiment shared by many in the corporate sector who see these trade tensions as detrimental to business stability. The backdrop to Bessent's reassurances is a recent announcement from the Trump administration which declared a 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs, excluding those on China, where tariffs currently stand at a staggering 145%. In response to these changes, Bessent emphasized that while substantial agreements might not be finalized within this timeframe, significant progress could still be made with the 14 largest trading partners of the U.S., which include countries grappling with large trade deficits. Let's set aside China, Bessent explained. There are 14 partners we are in rapid motion with. And while a formal legal document may not be ready in 90 days, we could achieve substantial clarity on agreements in principle. This statement reflects a strategic pivot towards negotiating with allied nations to stabilize trade relationships and potentially isolate China economically. However, the reality on the ground remains complex. Bill Newland, CEO of Constellation Brands, highlighted the consumers' concerns, stating that economic anxieties, particularly around inflation and immigration, are leading to reduced spending on goods and services. As consumer confidence wanes, companies are feeling the pinch, with some like Constellation noting stagnant sales amid growing uncertainty. Bessent's agenda also includes leveraging negotiations with a wide array of countries to extract commitments that could limit their dealings with China. This strategy, aimed at creating a united front against Beijing, has garnered attention but also skepticism. Observers warn that while the U.S. may be attempting to isolate China, President Xi Jinping has been proactive in strengthening ties with other nations, positioning China as a key player in the global trade conversation. Despite Besant's optimistic outlook, the economic landscape remains unpredictable. The volatility in global stock and bond markets driven by ongoing tariff disputes underscores the fragility of corporate America's confidence. As companies reliant on Chinese manufacturing face significant stock declines and as gold prices soar to record highs, the implications of U.S. trade policy are becoming increasingly apparent. Looking ahead, the coming weeks will be critical as businesses await the promised clarity on tariffs and deregulation. Besant's assertions of impending resolutions may provide a glimmer of hope, but the realization of these promises will depend on effective negotiations and the broader geopolitical landscape. As corporate leaders navigate this tumultuous environment, the focus will undoubtedly remain on how these trade dynamics will evolve and shape the future of the U.S. economy. In a rapidly changing political landscape, Howard Lutnick has emerged as a pivotal figure in shaping the current U.S. administration. Once a prominent Wall Street executive at Cantor Fitzgerald, where he amassed a net worth exceeding $2 billion, Lutnick is now at the forefront of Donald Trump's Washington. His recent recognition as one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people of 2025 underscores his significant role in the intersection of business and government. Lutnick's transition from finance to politics came swiftly after he was appointed U.S. Commerce Secretary. In this capacity, he has been a driving force behind the administration's aggressive trade policies, advocating for a maximalist approach on tariffs. This strategy has had far-reaching consequences, contributing to a global financial panic that raised concerns among economists and business leaders alike. Lutnick's ideas have sparked both innovation and controversy, noted Time correspondent Eric Cortellessa. He stands at the nexus of influence, which can be both a blessing and a burden. Despite his ambitions, Lutnick has not been without critics. His approach has drawn ire from various White House aides and business leaders, leading to speculation about his future should the economy falter. Some insiders suggest he may be positioned as a scapegoat if the nation were to enter a recession, reflecting the high stakes of his current role. However, his supporters argue that he is simply trying to expand his influence within the administration, as evidenced by his recent moves to integrate the U.S. Postal Service into the Commerce Department. This blending of business acumen and governmental authority aligns with one of Trump's central philosophies, the belief that success in business can translate to effective governance. Lutnick exemplifies this ideology, bringing a wealth of experience from the financial sector into his political endeavors. His dual existence as a powerful businessman and a government official illustrates a broader trend where business leaders are increasingly stepping into political roles, a phenomenon that could reshape the landscape of American governance. Looking forward, Lutnick's future in the administration remains uncertain, particularly as economic indicators fluctuate and the political climate shifts. As he navigates these challenges, his actions will likely continue to resonate within both the business community and the corridors of power in Washington. Whether he will solidify his influence or become a cautionary tale in the annals of political history remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: Howard Lutnick is a name that will be closely watched as 2025 unfolds.